Hello, good day friends, and welcome to the Financial Literacy. It is brought to you by the Financial Literacy Foundation in partnership with MTW or with Mana TV. First of all, allow me to thank and appreciate my leadership, my senior pastor, Pastor Joylene, who is our lead at Mana Tabernacle. And I also want to appreciate our General Overseer, Pastor Strike, who is the vision bearer and the founder of Mana TV. And we learn a lot from him every day that we come together. We put this before the nation. We put this before the society. We put this before the members of Mana Tabernacle, but also the people in general. I want to appreciate also once more our Facebook friends who are joining us specifically for these teachings and all the other teachings that are brought to you by Mana TV and Mana Tabernacle of Witness. Thank you very much, friends. Today we want to continue in our quest to creating or building a balanced financial plan. And today what we want to talk about, it is for us to be able to understand the one of the aspects that has to do with having a balanced financial plan in place. And the topic for today, I've titled as to say, why do you need an appropriate life cover? So we want to talk about life cover today. The need to have an appropriate life cover. You will understand even as I say that it means there are things that are called by the name of life cover, which are not necessarily life covers. So we talk of an appropriate life cover because it does have a room. In fact, one of the biggest rooms in your creation of a balanced financial plan. You know, even as I talk about this, it's not such a nice thing to talk about, but allow me to have this as an opening or as an introduction to say a black man was destined to die in poverty. Even insurance companies and their products, they were designed in such a way that whatever a black man will get will never amount to much. It will never amount to changing his life. A black man was meant to cross-subsidize the industry, so as we put it. Why do I say this? In products and in company systems that were designed, were designed for a black man or for an African child to simply keep him at where he is. Because in different insurance companies, service providers or product providers out there, I have learned to realize in my 20 years working in the financial services industry, of which 14 years I have been independent, that there seem to be certain sections that a black man is not pointed unto, but we are pointed unto certain other things which to me are just a tip of what an insurance industry is all about. We are shown the doors of products that are none or very far from wealth creation. In other words, the doors that an African is shown, there is no wealth creation strategy, even in those products. We even look at the people who were supposed to be the spearheaders or those who are leading or showing the way. Even in this thing, you find that they are not even that knowledgeable. So by looking or observing that, I've realized that no, there is so much that needs to be explored and put out there for people to be able to realize. One of the things that I've learned is that it is becoming more apparent that Just as much as we had systems designed for different personalities in the past, where we had education for black people, we had education for Indian people, we had education for white people, we had trained coaches for black people and for white people, even toilets, we had toilets designed for black people and toilets designed for white people. I've learned to realize with pain that we even had insurance industry that was designed for black people and parts of the insurance industry that was designed for white people. Even as I say that, you will realize that those things still exist even today. Yes, we might no longer be calling them by color, but we call them by different categories, such as education level, such as occupational risk occupation, such as income levels. But at the end of the day, it points to the same type of people whom it was pointing to before democracy dawned in our shores. Some of these companies and products have resorted into call centers. And to me, I believe it is known who will be relying on call centers. It's not about politics, it's not about color coding, but it is being realistic to say, what is it that we understand about insurance industry? When we talk of a life cover, what do we mean? When we say we are having insurance as a strategy that we can use as a wealth creation, as a wealth protection, are we really getting into such? An African man was pointed unto funeral insurance. And the next thing that an African man was pointed into was again funeral insurance. And when a child is born on an African family, the first thing that we think of a funeral cover is to make sure that he is covered in the event of death, that he will be able to be buried with decency. So we say we are buried with dignity. What about that dignity? Because you are buried with dignity, but your family remain languishing in poverty. So what is that dignity all about? After all, I'm not saying that funeral policies are not important. They are very important because we do need money for burial. But my point here is that we seem to be focusing more on funeral insurance and we understand less about life insurance or life covers. They are all called life insurance. That is why you hear me saying all. They are called life insurance, but there is a huge difference between the two. We are having a whole lot of funeral insurance in our life insurance space, and we are having less, if at all, anything to do with life covers. I've got 3 questions that I want to ask. And question number 1 is, what are you doing with those 5 funeral policies, 10 funeral policies? What are you doing with those? Are you going to have 5 different funerals for your own self? Are you going to have 10 different funerals for your own selves? What are you doing with those many policies that are for funeral benefits, that are filling up your payslip, that are filling up your bank statement when you print your debit orders? My second question is, do you have a life cover? And if you do, how much is your life cover? How much benefit is it going to pay out? Some of these 5-10 different funeral policies, when we add up the different benefits together, you find that they only amount to 60,000. But because you have them as 5,000 on one policy, 2,000 on the other policy, 10,000 on the other policy, they appear as if you've got so much benefits. Meanwhile, if we add them together, we find that actually it is close to nothing, especially when we compare it with the premiums that you are paying for them. You can consolidate those different funeral policies into one. whereby you'll be able to have 1 or 2 funeral cover products. You minimize on the payment of policy fees. As you reduce your policy fees, because every policy that you are taking has got a policy fee included in it. If you can reduce the number of those products, you might find that you can actually increase your benefits. So let us try to realize that insurance, it's not all about funeral covers. In fact, the oldest insurance company in South Africa today, it's about 175 years old. Yes, you got me right. 175 years old. And the majority of such company, the majority of the clients in such a company, it's a black man. It's me and you and your uncle and your aunt and your sister and your brother. Yet we are the poorest. We still remain at the bottom of the wealth platform, if at all we appear there. Are you aware that there is no better strategy of protecting and creating wealth that you can find anywhere else other than in the insurance industry, other than in the insurance companies? So why is it that the oldest insurance company in South Africa is 175 years old? So for all these many years, we haven't created wealth. Our counterparts on the other side are making use of the same strategy, and they are creating and multiplying wealth. Upon death of every member of the family, there is an addition in their wealth plate. But with a black man, it is not so. When a black man dies, he multiplies poverty. While he has been paying thousands and thousands of premiums into those companies, yet we are not in a position to can create wealth. You might be asking yourself, how do I say that it is the best in wealth creation? Look at it in this way. Let me give an example as an illustration. Let's say you take out a life cover, which is properly structured. A life cover for R1 million, and your premium is 500 rand. And you pay those premiums while alive, and you die after 50 years of having started paying the first premium. So let us forget the age and everything, but you pay your life cover for 50 years and you die for 500 rand. That will be 500 rand multiplied by 12. That is the 12 months in a year. Multiply by 50. What answer do you get? You get 300,000. Which means you have bought R1 million at a price of 300,000. Where else will you invest 300,000 to get R1 million? If we adjust it with inflation, again it still works out even best, because it will be 500 rand times 12 times 50. But inflation adjusted, let's say inflation it is at a rate of 6%. You will have put in 1.8 million rand from your own pocket over the 50 years period. And your payout that your family is going to benefit is going to be 18.4 million. Where will you find that? I'm not saying it is the only way to create wealth. I'm saying it is one of the best ways to create wealth. We must not be fearful to create wealth which will be enjoyed by our children. Because if our parents, assuming that your parents have died, if your parents have made use of this strategy, you will be a millionaire today. Because they will have died and left you with those millions. So that means that if you could do it, your children are going to benefit from your 300,000 rand of investing, where they're going to get such millions into their pockets. So in other words, a black man can still have a room to kick poverty out of his household. You need to make a decision to say, the fact that I did not inherit any million from my parents does not mean that I cannot create a million for my children. That is a decision that you need to make. You need to learn to create wealth. Life or death, you need to learn to create wealth. If you fail to create wealth while still alive, make a determination to create such wealth when you are dead. Your children are going to inherit and they are going to take over. As you do that, their children are going to do the same thing. They are going to inherit from what strategy that you will have created. I want us to look at few reasons why it is important for us to have a life cover. An appropriate life cover, as I've put it. First of all, we have indicated that it could be a good strategy to create wealth. But let us move on to say a second reason could be that it will help you to pay off your debts upon your death. Because you are alive today, you have bought your car on credit, you have bought your house on credit. You have a credit card, you have a personal loan, you have whatever else that you are still paying on a monthly basis. Upon your death, I want you to remember that those debts will not die with you. Someone will have to pay them. Who will that be? Be that person who will pay off those debts upon your death. And the best way to create a facility to pay off such debts, it is by having an appropriate life cover, so that you can indeed multiply wealth rather than multiplying poverty. Because if you die and leave debts, that means you are actually multiplying poverty. You are as good as being a selfish person. And I know that the fact that you are sitting here listening to me, you are not a selfish person. So we are helping to create strategies in making sure that your wishes are adhered. Another reason is that your estate is going to have costs to administer it. Estate administration costs. Yes, we can be able to calculate those costs to the cent, how much it will cost you if you were to die today. So make it a point that you have made a room for such estate expenses to be paid. We are referring to the estate duties, we are referring to executors' fees, we are referring to the master's fees and other expenses that we spoke about when we did the estate planning. You can have a life cover that is aimed at paying off your estate expenses, including your debts, and now we are referring to the other administrative expenses that your estate will have to pay at the end of the day before it transfers those assets to your loved ones. The other reason is that we need to create liquidity in our estate. By liquidity, we are referring to as much as you have assets. Some of those assets may not necessarily be cash or liquid. By liquid means that they cannot easily be sold. So, and still they will need to be passed on to the next heirs. It could be the surviving spouse, it could be the children, it could be any of your loved ones. For it to properly happen, we need to have liquidity in your estate. We need to have cash in order to be able to make sure that happens. A life cover can be a very useful product that can be used to create such liquidity. When there is no liquidity in the estate, the asset will have to be sold. And it may be the very same house that you are saying that you are leaving your family with a roof. So if there is no liquidity, there is no guarantee that that roof that you are leaving your family will be there for them to be able to live under. A life cover can solve that problem. So we mentioned three things now. We mentioned paying off of debts. We mentioned paying off of administrative expenses of the estate. We also mentioned liquidity in the estate. And to add on that, it is important that when such policy is taken, you need not nominate a beneficiary, so that that policy can pay into the estate, because these are the responsibilities of the deceased estate. The life cover will pay into the estate and make sure that there is funds that are earmarked for such. There are other reasons. You need to provide income. When you die with your finances. When you die with your salary. make sure that your family continue to have an income. You have been accustoming, or they have been accustomed to a particular economic status, not so? Now, when you die, make sure that you maintain that status. Even when you are in the grave, you can make sure that you maintain their economic status. They don't have to move from this residential area into another residential area simply because they can no longer afford to pay the municipal rates, for example. They have to sell off the vehicles. You have been accustomed to take them to the shopping mall and this and that using this type of a vehicle. Merely because you decided to die, your family now have to downgrade their lifestyle. My friend, to make a difference and maintaining that state of economy in your family, you can take out a life cover to ensure that there is income provision in your family. The other reason is that there is education for the children. Yes, when you are still alive, you will hustle here and there, you will make things happen. But what about when you die before your children enters into tertiary education? I specifically choose to talk about tertiary education because it is the most expensive education course that a child will undergo. You can take out a life cover which is specifically aimed at making sure that should I die before my children enters the university doors, their fees are guaranteed, so that they can be better people through education. You know that education plays a very important role in the development of a child's state of economy. Other reason that we can speak about is making sure that you secure your debts by making use of a life cover. When you do a debt, when you buy a vehicle on credit or the other things, usually the financing institutions will give you a credit life, not so? You can be able to tell them, no sir, I do have a life cover that I can use in the place of the credit life policy that you are giving me. Why is this so and why is it important? Because in most cases, the credit life that is offered by the credit provider, it's actually quite expensive compared to the normal life cover that you can take out. We are talking life cover. Do you have an appropriate life cover? Is your life cover gonna be able to stand to be used as a security for your credit? When you have done a right policy, it will be able to do that. Over and above that, those things that we call insurance policies and everything that we jump up and down believing that we are insured can actually be added within a properly structured life policy. So you can have a life policy that pays out all that secures all these other things I've mentioned today, but over and above that, you can still add the funeral cover for the family members within that one policy. So it is not necessarily a must that you must have 3, 4, 5, 7 different policies that are aimed at achieving the same goal. A proper life cover, it is also an asset in your estate. So it is a good balance sheet item in your estate. Let us have a life cover. Even if you don't have much of the assets in the form, say maybe houses and business and all these other things, and you believe that I don't know what I'm gonna leave my family if God were to recall me back to heaven today. My friend, let me tell you, you can have a life cover. It can form a biggest asset in your estate and your family are going to inherit that. I like to put it this way. You see, those of us who don't remember our grandparents today, it is also contributed by the fact that they have left nothing for us. Had they left something for us, we will forever be remembering them. Some of us will have named buildings in their names. Some of us will have named different things. We will have created statutes. We will have done every other thing so that their name remains with us simply because we have inherited wealth from them. Let us have proper life policies. The nice thing about a life policy also is that you can nominate beneficiaries. And as you do that, that simply means that you can choose who must benefit from that life policy. This is very ideal, especially whereby you have other people who are your loved ones, yet you did not include them in your estate planning or in your drafting of the will. So they have no benefit in the will, but you do wish to leave something for them. A life policy will be an ideal thing. Let me use an example. Let's say you have a family, and also you do have maybe your parents, or you do have your uncle or your sister. Better still, you have maybe a child out of wedlock that you do feel that you need to be responsible, whether you are alive or dead. You might choose not to include them in your will, but the good thing is that you can take out a policy specifically for that particular child, so that they are not necessarily part of your immediate family planning, but you did not neglect the responsibility, especially where you are currently looking after them. So let us be wise. We can make use of a life policy in many different ways. But another important thing we need to know about a life policy is that it pays tax-free. In other words, the benefits that are payable from a life policy, that is when it is properly structured, when it is correctly structured, because it might pay tax, but when it is correctly structured, be aware that such benefits does not pay tax to the one who is benefiting from that money. So the beneficiary will not necessarily going to pay tax from that amount that they are receiving. Let us be wise. Let us realize that what we have been given as black people was mainly funeral covers. So, like I said earlier, there is nothing wrong with funeral covers. But what is not right is that it blinds our minds, it blinds our eyes, it closes our ears, such that we no longer get to realize that there is this thing. So funeral insurance was not necessarily, or is not necessarily, the thing in the insurance industry. It is just a small aspect over and above the bigger picture of the insurance industry. Do you have a life cover? How much is your life cover? And if you don't, I will follow up and ask again and say, what about the funeral insurance? Do you have them? How many are they? And why are you having so many funeral policies? Let us transform. Let us wake up. It's a good thing that you have taken a funeral insurance, because we need to incur expenses in order to bury you. But that is not all. Let us not only focus on that part. Let us look at the bigger picture. Protect your family's economic status, so that we can say we buried him decently, but we are again remaining alive decently. You can give all of this. So you remember, some of us, we are not taking out policies, life policies, because we've got medical conditions. Who said to you that a life insurance cannot be issued to you when you are HIV positive, or when you are diabetic, or any other condition? My friends, be aware. A life insurance company today will still issue a life policy for most of the medical conditions that we are feeling that we are bad to take out a life policy for those reasons. They are neither here nor there. So please, let us do this and do this right, and let us avoid policies with premium increases annually where the benefits are not increasing. Why would you want to take a policy that you pay a higher premium every year while the benefits are remaining the same? Now, please, I beg you, as I close, go and review your insurance portfolio. Go and make sure that your insurance portfolio is balanced. It is not weighing over to a particular section of insurance benefits, but it is balanced and professionally looked at. Let us be responsible with the resources that God gives us. When we pay premiums to a life policy, we are investing. It is an investment, yes. It may be that you are not the one to benefit from it, but your children are. That is why you are not a selfish parent. So let us be wise. Let's do these things wisely. Let us make sure that we consult. Let us make sure that our things are looked at by properly and well vested advisors who are competent to be able to do this without necessarily being agents or representing a product provider. Be aware of the terms and conditions also. Terms and conditions will determine whether you get paid or you lose. So terms and conditions can be interpreted before a claim. So let us be aware of the terms and conditions of our products. I want to thank you and appreciate you, and I believe that this is adding into your knowledge. But get up and take action. Thank you very much. May God richly bless you in Jesus' name. Amen.